everyone, welcome once again to the Reckless and Oblivious Comic Vault. Today we're going to take a look at the Powerpuff Girls movie adaptation comic book, which came out in 2002, of course, when the movie came out, and mine is signed by Philip Moy, who did the best work on the Powerpuff Girls. I think he's absolutely, hands down, the best artist that drew on the series, and if you're not aware of this, there was a very long-running comic series for Powerpuff Girls from DC. I think there were 80-something issues, and I have been, over time, reviewing them. I've been doing them one by one. I'm going to start trying to review more of them this month, and I'm thinking about going more than one at a time to try to get them knocked out and just tell you about them in case you never get a chance to get your hands on them. I have all of them. One of our viewers was kind enough a few years back to send me the entire collection. And anyway, this was in there, and I have met Philip Moy in person and talked to him about his delightful work on Powerpuff Girls, and this was not one that I had signed personally. As I often like to do when I talk about movie adaptations, I'm going to ask the question once again, what exactly is the point of these? And some of them handle this differently than others, but this one is pretty typical. By and large, what these tend to do is they don't really stand alone on their own as their own piece. They tend to be kind of just representative of the movie, where it'll be kind of a truncated, condensed version of the film, and it might be kind of fun to replay the movie in your mind reading it, but it wouldn't give you anything like the same effect that the film did if you were to read it on its own. And of course, as I've always said with movie novelizations, I doubt very seriously if very many people at all only read the book version of a movie as opposed to actually looking at the film, and I'm sure the same is true with comic books. The only time I could imagine this ever happening is if someone like is given this, if like a kid, say, was given the comic adaptation of a movie as a present, and his parents didn't take him to the movie, and he had to wait till it was on video, so he read it that way. Or if he, was able to get his parents to buy the comic, but he couldn't get them to take him to the movie theater. Like, I could see an isolated, kind of almost desert island scenario where this would happen, but by and large, I'm sure the majority of people who get comic adaptations are collectors, and they get these things because they're buying all of the merchandise, or they at least want some souvenirs from the movie. And so what's the point of this? Why even open it up? Why even read through it? And as I said, I think it can be kind of fun to kind of replay the movie in your mind, quickly, and sometimes it's fun just to see how they approach this and how you get a whole movie in a small space, 22 pages or 30 pages or however long it is. I think this one is slightly oversized. Yeah, it's a few more pages, but as you can see, it is, putting as many bits of a scene on a page as humanly possible. You're not going to, in a thing like this, usually, unless you make it a miniseries, and I kind of wish more of these would do that. You're very rarely going to turn the page and get a full-page spread, and you have a lot of scenes, as I've talked about with the, I forget, I think I've reviewed the Batman Returns adaptation, and I know I've reviewed the Ninja Turtles 1990 movie adaptation. Both of those, and this as well, tend to take a scene and have the dialogue there that really played in a scene that was cut in a particular way, but because it's in comic book form and we only have so many pages, it doesn't play the same way. You have you'll have a bit where, for instance, in this, toward the end, in the third act of the movie, when Mojo Jojo says, "It's time to oppose that thumb," he says that here, but he doesn't do the thumb. You don't have the thumb. So like it's not as funny of a pun, because it's there, and if you're really slowing yourself down and looking at it and you haven't seen the movie, you might appreciate that pun and find it funny, but the movie made it a lot funnier by drawing attention to it and having everything stop when he says that. And I should say, of course, you're also not going to have exactly, this goes without saying, exactly the same experience that you did with the movie, because you don't have all the other components. You don't have the delivery of the dialogue, and you don't have the music behind it, or the sound effects, or any of those things. So all those things have to be approximated in different ways in a comic book. Now, I'd like to say that this is sort of like reading the storyboard of a movie, but it isn't exactly that either, because as I said, there are bits left out, even when visually, even when some of the dialogue is still there. I think the layouts are really good in this. I think some of the choices of where panels are and how many are on a page are cool, and or sometimes even a little bit clever, but by and large, it's just being as economical as it can be. It's compressing as much on a page as possible. It doesn't outright skip any scenes that I noticed. There are parts that are, as I said, really truncated. For instance, when the Powerpuff Girls go to the moon, because the professor says he doesn't know what to believe and he doesn't know if they're good, they fly off and they go to the moon, and they have part of the conversation that they do in the first place where Buttercup and Blossom start to fight, but then they hear people screaming on the Earth a lot faster than they do in the movie, and it ends up skimping out on my favorite line of the whole movie when Bubbles says, "But I don't want to sleep on a rock!" And so it's it's missing some stuff here and there. It's fun to look at. It's absolutely that movie. Philip Moy does a fantastic job of, and I think he has somebody finishing these two. So he's doing the layouts, and then he's got somebody else doing the finishes. So Phil Moy doing the layouts, Christopher Cook doing the finishes. They're doing a fantastic job of giving it the look of that movie, although it looks like a lot of the comics from DC, so it doesn't really have that cinematic quality to it. Some panels more than others, but it's kind of it's hard to explain. It's shaded in similar ways, and the color is the same, but it doesn't have that depth and that cinematic feel that the movie does over the TV show. So if you didn't know this is the movie and you just picked it up, it would look like just a comic book origin for the Powerpuff Girls, and I suppose that would be a thing that would be worth looking at if for some reason you didn't get a chance to see the movie, because if you didn't see this opening weekend, you probably didn't see it, because it didn't perform, and it was a bomb, and so a lot of theaters had it that opening weekend and probably got rid of it really quick, maybe one more weekend. I was able to see it three times in the theater because I worked at a theater at the time, and I saw it several times in 1 week because I knew it wasn't performing and I knew it wouldn't be there very long. I'm not talking very much about the actual story of this. I've done a superhero rewind on the Powerpuff Girls movie. If you're watching this and if you look at this, chances are you know the story. It's an origin for the Powerpuff Girls, and it's about their learning to be responsible with their powers, and about Mojo Jojo manipulating them and doing the doing that classic superhero trope of the villain that creates the heroes and the heroes that kind of create the villain. It's a thing that I seem to love a lot more than a lot of other people. I've seen the Powerpuff Girls movie a bunch of times. It's something I like a lot, and it's surprising because I've always been so iffy on origin movies for superheroes, and when this came out, it was a thing that I really didn't think was a great idea, doing the origin for the Powerpuff Girls in the movie, because I always liked the idea that their origin was so simplistic that just in the intro, sugar, spice, everything nice, here's the Chemical X, and boom, you have the Powerpuff Girls. What more do you need? And then I saw the movie, and I really liked all the social commentary about bad parenting and about education. And a lot of people think that it's a really bleak and weirdly relentless movie for being the Powerpuff Girls. And I understand that criticism, but it feels like it's kind of also parodying superhero origins, where the world is in really awful shape until the superheroes come in and save it, and now it's the bright, chipper world that we know from the Powerpuff Girls, and that was a thing that I liked a whole lot about it. Some of it also is probably just a taste issue. It hit me at a particular time in my life when some of the things, this sounds weird, but when some of the things that it was discussing, some of the ideas and issues were things that kind of hit close to home to me right then. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and reading this adaptation, it was kind of fun to play it back in my mind again, but knowing it as well as I do, I noticed all those points where it kind of skipped over bits of dialogue that I really like and remember, and so that kind of was a little bit intrusive and took me out. I also noticed a few places where there were some things that were added in that maybe were in the initial script that were taken out. Mojo has a speech or two that seem to be a tad longer, unless it's been a little while since I've seen that movie, but I know it pretty well, unless I just don't remember or didn't pick up on certain lines of dialogue because of, other distractions in the movie. Another thing that's kind of nice about a thing like this, and this would be the point of reading film scripts, is getting to look at some of the dialogue that maybe you didn't pick up on in the theater. And of course, if you buy movies now, and this wasn't the case so much with VHS tapes, you can, and on Netflix and Hulu and what have you, you can watch with subtitles and find out what the dialogue is while you're watching it. But a lot of people certainly don't think to watch things that way, and it's nice, with the pictures to get that. Maybe being able to slow down the pacing yourself, looking at a thing like this, you might pick up on some things that you didn't before. But anyway, that is what I have to say about the Powerpuff Girls movie adaptation. I'll come back to you with some more comic reviews pretty soon. I'm going to review a couple of the IDW Powerpuff Girls things, and I'm gonna work my way through the comics from DC and try to kind of make those a little bit quicker and more concise, and maybe do 2 or 3 at a time, and mostly just take you through them and tell you what the stories were and whether or not I think they would have made really good episodes, and talk a little bit about the art and that kind of thing. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Sure appreciate it, and I'll see you here on Geekvolution for lots more Powerpuff Month videos here in the month of May. Once again, I'm Captain Logan, and happy reading.